Supreme Court contributor. Kate Shaw, thanks for joining us. We're talking about the veracity, the veracity of this second accuser who said that she was drunk and she had to double check with people she talked about at the time. That seems like an awful flimsy second accuser.
I think it's right that what we know so far suggests that the second accusation, it seems, just again, we don't know much yet, but seems less credible than the first, absolutely. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Senate plow ahead with the Thursday hearing as scheduled. I think that Dr. Blasey Ford so far does seem to be quite credible. Obviously, we'll have to see what her testimony and Judge Kavanaugh's testimony consists of, but I would agree with you. At least at the first pass, it does not seem as though the second accusation approaches the same level of credibility.
Kate Shaw, where are we if we are all on display and everything we did in high school and college is now open to interpretation and will then depend on what job we get when we're 50 years old?
Yeah, I think this is tough. There are a lot of kind of competing interests to balance here. I think that, one, it's okay to hold Supreme Court justices to very high standards of personal conduct. Now, no one is going to have a perfect record, and I don't think that's a realistic standard. But I do think that very high standards for a job that is this important and this powerful, and in which you're going to sit in judgment on the conduct of all kinds of people and make rules that will bind the conduct of the entire nation. So I think that under these particular circumstances, a very high standard is appropriate. Yeah. But there still needs to be some standard. Just a bare allegation shouldn't be enough to derail a Supreme Court nomination. So I think that an accusation has to be a credible one, and that's why I think it is good that there's a hearing that is scheduled. We'll see if the hearing actually holds, but if Thursday happens as planned, we'll have a chance to actually hear from this accuser, and only I think if she testifies credibly, then will I think it be appropriate for senators to choose to vote against her. So I don't think we're saying that any accusation, no matter how flimsy, should be enough, but I do think that I at least would say that this isn't a criminal trial, and the burden shouldn't be proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
But, depending just how credible she is, we know memory is a tricky thing. We know all sorts of things. And yet maybe something did happen, but he categorically denies it. She says, well, this is exactly how it happened. It was in high school. And it seems like I know everyone's looking at this through their own political prism, but if you can take the politics out of it, and all of a sudden, if a high school situation isn't good enough for you to be a Supreme Court justice, is it good enough for you to be a president of a company? How about a talk show host? How about a mailman? Right? How about a school teacher? Right? At what point is what you do in high school not affect your job when you're 50?
Well, I think, look, everyone's complicated, and everyone has sort of history that they bring to bear, but I think the answer just has to be different depending on the position. So I think for most jobs, look, it also depends on what really happened. So you're saying he says he didn't do it, but you're also saying, well, he's in high school, so even if something did happen, they viewed the incidents very differently. But if the events did happen as she has described it, right, this was the use of force, placing his hand over her mouth, she feared for her life. If it all happened as she has described it, I think it's totally appropriate to disqualify him from a Supreme Court position and any other position of serious government power and authority. If nothing happened whatsoever, and this is a false accusation, I would agree with you that it shouldn't be disqualifying. The problem is it's going to be difficult for anyone to get to absolute certainty about sort of which of those two or something in between is in fact what happened, and that's where I think credibility does matter. So it's okay for senators to decide to reach different conclusions based on their assessment of the credibility, right? Juries decide on the credibility of witnesses all the time. The Senate is going to have to make that same determination. But I think if there's credible testimony that this is what happened, it's okay to disqualify someone for it. In fact, it's correct to disqualify someone for it, despite the long past nature of these events. They happened a long time ago. They're still serious enough that if true, I think they should be disqualifying.
Kate Shaw, ABC News Supreme Court contributor. Thank you for your time. You got to run. Have a good day, Kate. Thanks.